Welcome to the Purple Rock Survivor Podcast, one of Google Play's top 4 Survivor podcasts. We're talking Kaoh Rong episode 10 this week, and we are here, much like Ty is, to make good friends, or at least mediocre friends. And speaking of mediocre friends, Andy,
That'd be me!
What did you think of this episode?
It was good. It was a good episode. It was, I stated this before it even happened, that I was torn between my, desperate, naked need to be right about things and to not want the season to suck. And I guess, eventually I landed on the, idea that it was really, a no-lose situation for me. One of two things was going to happen and both would feel pretty good. It turns out, an episode that might be sending us down the path of a really satisfying winner was pretty fun to watch, even if I might have to eat a bit of crow tonight. Although if that's what you're tuning into, everyone, I might have some surprises for you.
Yeah, I wouldn't get your hopes up too much. You're not known for admitting defeat.
Not so much.
Even when you were clearly objectively wrong about the Tony thing, you eventually just changed course midstream and just pretended it never happened.
Nah, I admitted right away. I was proud to admit it. 'Cause I will, admit when I'm wrong. It just doesn't happen as often as people think. 'Cause my whole thing is, be a good player and suddenly I'm on your side.
Yeah. So let's talk about Tribal Council first, because that's really what everyone was discussing today. And it was a really good one. Again, following last week's also excellent Tribal Council.
Yeah. And I think just straight up, cheering for heroes, rooting against villains, this has to be one of the most crowd-pleasing moments in the history of the show, wouldn't you say?
I don't know that Scott and Jason are quite that hated. I mean,
I think they are. There's this place I visited at the internet, and the people aren't as reasonable about them as you and I are.
I mean, I get it. They make villains every season, and yes, they've done some things that just are cringeworthy, make you roll your eyes, whatever. But they've also at least had some fun moments. Like they've been, well-rounded people, complex personalities, if you will. They haven't been complete, dark side villains the whole time.
I don't know if that's going to be a popular opinion amongst the people who watch. I think you and I do, because you and I do not have a problem with arrogant, jerkish behavior. I think, we, enjoy it even, We could be like, yes, that was funny. Other people are we've had people on our site in multiple occasions this season because of the actions of Jason and Scott say, I'm going to quit watching this season.
But why would you stop watching this season? It's been great so far.
Yeah, and it almost turns out that when villains get their comeuppance, it's much more satisfying than even just somebody you being somebody you like just a little bit less. For me, this rates right up there with Fiji. That was an amazing moment, not just because of the strategy or, the facial expressions. It was because people I really didn't lost in a spectacular way. People wonder, why we love Cook Islands, because it's become fashionable to not like it. And they're like, oh, it's just a bunch of game bots and, Yule isn't that exciting. It's honestly, it's not that complicated. A bunch of assholes were shown up on TV by people we like. I don't know if there's, it doesn't happen as much on Survivor as you'd like. And, I think for a lot of people watching last night, that's what happened. They were rooting for it. And coming into this episode, it felt like it wasn't going to happen. I spent a lot of time last week basically saying that the people that, people had missed their shot. So I think there was a lot of doom and gloom. I helped project it. I'm proud of that. And all of a sudden it happened, and that's exciting.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I really disliked about Worlds Apart was that there just wasn't enough comeuppance for the people that I really disliked in that season.
Yeah, I mean, the winner seemed nice enough, but it was just he won. That's what he just did. He just kept winning.
Right.
They never really lost. It's just darn, we can't vote him out.
Yeah, I mean, it just didn't feel like the people who really deserved it ever got what was coming to them. And I think, if you're viewing it through that lens, this one was very enjoyable, this particular episode.
Yeah, and it was just surprising. As much as people were coming after me last week, it was how dare you suggest that Aubrey and Sydney made the wrong play? Every one of our staff members, plus most of the people who voted on our poll, didn't suggest that one of the guys were going home last week. They picked somebody like Sydney or Aubrey or somebody else. So that suggests to me that we all thought or not all, but a great majority of people thought that, like, the guys were going to control the game, and suddenly, nope. And, yeah, we still don't know what's going to happen this season. Other than, I guess, the obvious winner.
Let's not get down that path again.
I might have an actual real contender for obvious winner in the way that we used to discuss these things.
Are you spelling obvious AUBVIOS?
That's right. The obvious winner. Because remember, like, I'm an old guy. Maybe, a bit too much into the classics. But I remember back when a winner's edit showed people doing things competently and people on their season speaking highly of them. That's just crazy. I know it's really about like animal reactions and musical stings, but for me, usually the people who do well in Survivor actually look like they're doing well in Survivor.
Did any of the previous all-time greats, did they eat hamburgers really well though?
I mean, probably. I mean, I think Tyson packed quite a few in and challenges that he skipped. So maybe that's the thing, and I'm just not reading the edit correctly.
But let's talk about the obvious winner. She was on some shaky ground last week, but this week I'm assuming you agree she knocked it out of the park.
She not only had the best play of the night, I think she had the best play of the season, and like just one of the great plays. Like, I was fully on board and fully impressed with what she did last night.
Yeah, specifically, I'm assuming you're talking about the pitch to Ty, which was spot on. I mean, she handled it perfectly. It was very much listen, ball's in your court. You're the one making the move here. I just think that, those guys aren't you. I can see that in you. Tried to make the emotional connection to him. I mean, within, 30 seconds of dialogue that we saw, it was about as effective of like an elevator pitch for flipping on his alliance as you could possibly have.
Yeah, no, she was, calm and reasonable. She appealed, to his emotional side, but also a bit to his intelligence, right? Like, she wasn't, coming down too much like, oh, people will like you. You did a really bad thing or anything like that. Like, she didn't treat him like he was an idiot. Like a lovable, figure that doesn't know what he's doing. She respected who he was and she didn't push. She had some time, and maybe that's the value of buying yourself an extra 3 days. I will concede that for everyone. And no, it was brilliant. And then she came back later. Like, there was never this desperation that, we've seen other people. Typically when people are down, they approach somebody out of desperation. That person's like, yeah, no, I'm good. Thanks. She, handled it completely well, and it suggested a level of rapport between them and Ty's conversation as well that had been completely kept from us. But no, it was fantastic, because here's the thing, like, it was against his interest to do this. And this is, the second time she's gotten somebody to flip to want to work with her who I don't think should have wanted to do that. So, full marks for her.
Yeah, this was not some last minute scramble of hers. This was something that she laid out and worked on for days. And that's the way to do it, because it does come across as, desperate last minute scrambling if she's doing this after an immunity challenge or the day of the immunity challenge.
Yeah, no, I mean, she presented the options, and then, she recognized he's somebody, like a lot of people, who need some soak time on this, and just think about it. And then when it got a little bit more down to, time to go, she was able to present him with a real option and, guarantee, which, probably is a little bit of bravado, but still, do it. Guarantee that we have 3 votes going for Scott. And I think, if I recall correctly, even with the suggestion that other votes might be going for you. So, I'm with you. I'm not with this other plan to get rid of you. This is what you could do, but I respect that the choice is yours. And I honestly was worried for Ty in that, because he never gave, from what we saw, he never gave confirmation. And I was worried it would have been one of those deals where, somebody's offering this and you're like, yeah, I'll think about it. And then they're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Ty was going home last night. I was pretty scared about that.
It was entirely possible. I also like how she sold the 3 votes that she had as being his, at his disposal. It's essentially, we're 3 strong. You tell us what to do. They're all yours. We're going to follow you wherever you say we need to go.
Yeah, no, and it was great. It was a fantastic social play, and it worked.
Well, and did you see, I don't know if you saw the secret scenes or not this week.
No, I missed them.
So Ty apparently is far, far more into Aubrey than we even got on the show. In the secret scenes, he's basically talking as though Aubrey is his number one ally. And I don't know the span of time that took to actually come about, but this was the first episode we've really seen them having much interaction. So did she just rope him in that hard within, 2-3 days of work?
I imagine she roped him in at least to the point where they became working partners, but, within that approach and the way they were discussing, the way he's talked, I imagine they've had good conversations that maybe weren't about, the game necessarily, but enough to maybe pick on each other's vibe. Cause I don't think it probably happened their first, meeting when she was advocating to vote him out, way back, post-swap. But they did spend that time together. They've been together since the swap. So I'm guessing there's been some time, but it just didn't work out. Maybe she was the one that told him to vote for Jason back when he did that.
It's entirely possible. Another thing that we haven't even mentioned yet, Aubrey beasted it in that challenge.
Both challenges.
Exactly, both challenges, although I do have it on good authority that females are strong as hell.
Apparently. No, she was awesome. And not just in, not quite winning, but giving it her all. She had some sass to her. She had some fight. If we want to talk about edits, I know it's super important for somebody to, reiterate the basics of Survivor for us, but she was they showed Jeff Probst talking about how amazing she was. They showed the villains of the season giving her respect. These things used to matter for winners, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's really, if you're looking for anything to make an edit-based argument, I think the scene of basically her earning Jason's respect, maybe that comes back into play at the end of the season when he's voting for her at a final tribal council.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just immediately post-challenge where, it gives her a hug. That's two people that were fighting it out. They're spent. I get it. But when they got back to camp, he reiterates it.
Yeah.
And
she's not even around.
Yeah. That, if you want, every moment and every second of the story matters, that matters. And, obviously, could it matter that maybe she's the best player of the season and taken out right before the final 3-2, whatever? Possibly. But I gotta say, even just in this episode, her, spitting in response to Jason is probably a better winner's edit reel than, you don't need to be carry me, bro. That's how good an episode this was of her. That, I think she did awesome. I think she played awesome. As you say, she's been, not only a beast in challenge tonight, kind of throughout the season. Oddly, that might have been the strongest part of her game so far.
I don't know. I think you've already mentioned she got Sydney and Ty to possibly go against their best interests already.
Right. At this point, yes. I think there was challenges in her social game early, at least from what we saw. And I think the edit loved her. This episode, it felt maybe either she's winning or maybe she's going tonight because she was heavily featured.
Yeah. And if we want to go all in on the edit argument for her, let's not forget in the first episode that we saw her looking really weak and dehydrated by the sun. I feel like there might have been a very recent winner that we saw, maybe eating a scorpion and puking in the very first episode of a season. I feel like that's happened recently.
I also feel like she got a bit of love when Neil got voted out. That was the thing that happened too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel really good about, her chances and also being excited for them because I think she's doing amazing. Another thing she did last night was excluding Julia and Michelle from the whole plan.
Mm-hmm. And proper read on that because from everything we've seen of Julia is very much not really on board with her anyway. This is a temporary situation for her.
Yeah, no, Julia's playing Julia's game and it doesn't necessarily involve Aubrey and Aubrey recognizes that. And you keep the circle tight when you're making big moves like this. Because Julia's objective, and we'll discuss it a bit more, was to get rid of Ty's idol. If she knew that the vote wasn't going towards Ty, I don't know if the vote wouldn't have just all gone towards Aubrey. So, she told who needed to be told, AKA the players that matter.
Yeah, and I won't throw it too much in your face about your bashing of Aubrey's move last week, because I think generally you agreed with the sentiment that she didn't really have any great options. I think it was just of the terrible options she had, you didn't think she had enough justification for selecting the option she did.
Yeah, and I do want to talk about that a bit, because I will concede, and I think, when people presented it, I often either, semi-agreed or at least shut up, because, who wants to admit fault? But that buying a few extra days has some value, and there wasn't a lot of good options. My point, and some of this is just philosophical, that sometimes you just need to take the risk and win, and I think part of that is, tonight was a huge risk. She didn't buying those extra 3 days didn't necessarily guarantee success. She shouldn't have been able to flip tie. Bravo for her. And maybe she had a bit of a feeling that is something she could do given some time, because, she's out there and I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
But if that didn't work, she would have gone home tonight. That's the risk she took. And, she was afraid last week to put her fate in the hands of Julia. And then, of course, had to do it. Her fate was on the hands of Julia tonight. If Julia was voting for Aubrey would be gone no matter what Ty did tonight. Well, I guess it would have been a tie, and then we could have seen what would happen. But probably might have been Aubrey, right? So yeah, tonight was a huge risk, and she did it. And that's kind of my basic point. Is if you're going to take a huge risk, why not get the big win? But more than judging her gameplay last week, because after a while I was just fighting every battle I could. The main thing that set me off was everybody saying she had a great week last week. I'm like, she didn't have the worst week, and that is going home. But she still took a loss, just an acceptable loss, if some people say.
She just had a bump on the road on the way to the obvious, overwhelming victory at Final Tribal Council.
Honestly, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's I don't get on Twitter and praise people for, acceptable losses. I would say, tough night for Aubrey. And that's kind of the point I've been making since the swap, is I don't see a lot of value in praising her for every little thing, especially when a lot of those things are either A, not her work, or B, mistakes. Because then it means nothing when you're yeah, she was awesome when she actually is. You were saying she was awesome when Sydney came up with a plan. You were saying she was awesome when she crossed Julia's name out and voted out Peter. And by you, I don't mean you. I mean listener who is pissed at me right now.
Sure. Yeah, and even though she played an awesome game last night, she had the best moves, it still could have blown up in her face. She still needed some luck for it to go down correctly. I mean, we'll get to exactly how it could have imploded later, but there was still risk here. It could have just as easily been she had this great plan. It was the best possible move, and she still could have gone home.
Yeah, and Ty just says, you know what? No, this isn't the best move for me because, I don't think it was the best move for him. So she took a big shot tonight and made it. My point was, take a big shot last week. Now, again, it worked out. And I'm not going to criticize her that. But, the point I was making last week, we can't just always kick the can down the road. And when I saw her do that, I kind of felt like that's the kind of player she was going to be. Looking to avoid risk, looking, unwilling to take the big shot. She did, yeah, and bravo. And I'm hoping and excited that this propels her throughout because, this is probably the first time I've been this impressed this season. There's been, minor victories throughout. I'm enjoying the season. I'm enjoying a lot of the players. But, she felt like a winner to me.
But what about next in line to the winner's edit crown? Ty, who finally made a quote-unquote big move, trademark Jeff Probst. Did you think that he was doing the right thing?
No. That's the other thing. I know one of my worst tendencies is to criticize the way people view. And I always say, no, you can watch how you want to watch. I mean that, but then I'm still a jerk and say the other things. People are like, oh, way to go, Ty. So you did the right thing. No, he didn't. You did the thing you wanted him to do. You don't care about Ty's success. You wanted to see Jason and Scott fail and maybe to see Aubrey Sydney succeed. But he just threw away a path at the end against the two of the most beatable players to go against people who have been conspiring to get him out and, are the biggest contenders to win. I don't consider that a win.
I mean, from that side, there's still certainly people he could go up against that he would beat, I think, fairly easily.
Those people weren't in on the vote. They voted for him last night. But
right.
Yeah.
The one thing that, I actually went through the math in my head. I was trying to figure out some scenario where those three guys could have gained a numbers advantage between the Super Idol and Ty's double vote. But the best I could come up with was them using the Super Idol this week, forcing a tie in round 1 of voting next week. And then I don't think you can even use the double vote in a second round of voting. So it would have blown up there. So there was no guarantee necessarily that he could have rode that group to the final three.
No, but here's what he could have done. Like, it's not that complicated. If Aubrey is telling the truth, and if you're flipping your vote to her, you believe she is. Now, if she wasn't telling the truth, he was screwed even more than he thought, right? Mm-hmm. So if she's telling the truth, she's got 3 votes that are going towards Scott. And if you know, as your alliance are telling you, that other people are voting for you, and, you know, it's hard to remember, but the 2 other people are, you know, Julia and Michelle, then your 4 votes wins. You don't need any idols. Jason, Scott, Ty. That's 4-3-2. They take out Aubrey, and now they still have a super idol with 3 people next week, and maybe Julia just flips out right at that point.
Yeah, I was trying to basically get it to a scenario where they were going to be tied, and then, you know, force of will, they're going to get someone to flip over to their side, and Julia would be the obvious candidate in that situation. I guess theoretically, if you knew the vote distribution this week, you probably could have done that way. So it's certainly possible he could have made it to the end. I do think, though, that the plan that Scott laid out about eventually betraying Ty and replacing him with Julia, that could have just been some BS they were feeding Julia, but I don't think so, because it's a pretty good plan.
I think it's both, you know? It's situational. Sure, we'll, you know, betray Ty to vote out you if it feels like it's the right thing to do. Or we won't, you know? Like, I think it was, like, I don't think it was off the table, but I don't necessarily know if it was the hard and fast for sure plan. But, like, do you think that the people he's with don't have a plan to vote him out at some point?
Oh, absolutely. I think the one thing that you can say, and he's got a huge target on him now, the one nice thing, though, is that he's the only person with an idol. He also has the double vote.
That's worked out really well for the other 2 people that had it, by the way.
I know. I'm just saying the man at least has weapons, and he's been known to do fairly well at challenges. So it's possible he could win immunity, keep himself safe long enough for votes to go other directions, play his idol at the right time, and he can push his way to the end. But yes, it does seem a little murkier path to the final 2 or final 3 now that he's flipped.
And, like, what he knew going in, like, this was a big move to flip to people who could just straight up be lying to you. Like, again, I thought he was going home. I thought, however, he was just gonna be like, haha, and like, cause, you know, we were advertised that there was a big blind side, and like, Probe's like, oh, you'll smack your head. I thought it was cause, like, Ty bought into, like, Aubrey or whoever's selling him on flipping, and then they just voted him out, and he sat there, you know, holding an idol. And maybe because he voted for, you know, Scott, Jason, whatever, obviously it could only be Scott once the episode was in, but I was, you know, before episode of running through, they wouldn't want to play their idol for him. They would like, what? Obviously that vote's for you, Ty, because you can't vote for yourself. And then he would have been floating in the wind. Like, I thought that was what was going to happen. But Jason and Ty have demonstrated extreme loyalty. Just like 3 days ago, they handed him a super idol. So, like, if you're wondering which side can I trust more, I don't think it's a competition. Could they have turned on him? Sure, they could have. Everyone can turn on you. It's Survivor. But if you're talking about, like, who's been on his side, nobody's been on his side more than those 2. Like, Aubrey's never once demonstrated any level of, loyalty to Ty. They told him to vote for Jason, and then they didn't. Like, they've left him hanging. Scott and Jason did not. We thought Jason would be the person that would never hand over an idol. He's done it twice.
And now he lost it for doing so.
Exactly. So, I think it was a bad move. Could he still do well? Sure. But I don't think he improved his station at all.
No, I think it's definitely a much tougher path to the finish line now. I just didn't necessarily see it as a guarantee that he could make the final 3 in his previous situation.
Oh, absolutely not. No, nor do I. I don't want to make that impression. I just think, like, he had a better path there. Because I think, he could have escaped tonight, taking the other side down by 1 more, possibly their most dangerous player, and still had 2 idols to work with next week. And then use that idol to get rid of Sydney. And now it's you 3 versus Joe, Michelle, Julia. I like them odds.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the path I would have taken. And, there's some argument. For one, some people are like, well, who would you rather compete with in challenges? Those girls or the former NBA player and military guy? And I'm like, the former military guy and the NBA player. If you guys not been watching, these guys are not good at these challenges.
Right. I mean, with the exception of Jason winning last night.
Right. Yeah, obviously. So maybe that's the recency bias. But, like, Sydney and Aubrey have been closer to winning these things than they have.
Yep.
Scott, I don't think is going to win. Well, obviously, I don't think Scott would have won another challenge. Like, challenges at this stage of the game just aren't built for, like, brute strength guys. And if there is a challenge that favors Jason and Scott over Ty, that's just not one Ty was going to win. Like, he's not going to beat Cindy for that either, right?
Right.
Like, you have to worry about, and this, is a point I think Steven might have made this, or Rob, one or the other, is all you can really do is find the people that are good at the challenges you're good at and get rid of them if that's what you're banking on in terms of competition.
Right. If your strategy involves riding an immunity streak to the end.
Right. Because, that's the ones you're going to win. If it's something you're not good at anyway, it doesn't matter who you've eliminated. You ain't going to win that. Unless you're somebody who's good at everything and your name is Joe.
Right.
Not Seasons Joe. Did you know, a little bonus fact there, an Easter egg. There's a person on the season named Joe.
I'll have to do some more investigation to confirm that.
And then the other line of thinking for Ty, people trying to sell that this was a good move for Ty, when really what they mean is, I really loved watching it and now I want to justify it strategically, he's bought the respect of the jury. They would hate that he just rode the coattails of the people. And I will say, yes, they would have hated that he rode the coattails of the people they don't like. They still would have voted for him though. Because you don't get to say not Ty. They would have had to say Scott. And they ain't gonna do that.
Probably not. Although those 3 jurors clearly were not expecting that move from Ty. So I think he definitely did earn jury respect. It's just a matter of, would he have needed that in his current situation?
That's my point. I think he did probably earn a bit of respect from everybody in the game. Maybe even bought back a bit of his reputation as the nice guy. Although, again, none of them saw him dump out the water or thought that he even did it. To the point where, like, in his exit interview today, Scott even's like, I didn't believe he did it until I saw it on TV. And I've hung out with him after the show. He's told me he did it. And we're like, yeah, nobody believes that you did it.
Right.
He didn't need it. That's gilding the lily. If you go against Jason and Scott, you win. That's just the simple math. And now he can't do that. If he, everybody is like, Ty made a great move for himself. You're lying to yourself. But ask me this, does he beat Aubrey in a final?
Oof. I mean, he'd have to lay some more significant groundwork, and I have a feeling he's gonna struggle in a final tribal council.
Yeah, I mean, has he been convincing? Honestly, I wonder if people even understand him half the time, because apparently nobody knew about the Super Idol, even though he freaking told them all.
Yeah, and a lot of people latched on to that, like, oh, they know about the Super Idol, they should be afraid. No, I mean, he brought it up at a tribal council. I don't think he ever laid out the full mechanics of how it was going to work. And even if he did, people have lied about that stuff before. And it could legitimately be like, oh, Ty got confused about what it does or something like that.
Yeah. I also think what happens sometimes, and we've heard this from former survivors, people just miss things that are said at tribal council, You're too busy thinking about yourself.
Survivors thinking about themselves? What?
I know, it sounds rare, but it happens. Or you're just you're just starving and hungry and tired. Like, people have said that, coming on an extra interview, it's like, oh, what did you do when somebody reacted that? It's like, I didn't even hear it, I wasn't even paying attention. I'm pretty confident Joe wasn't listening in, I just picked up some information from Ty. Apparently people just didn't hear it because this episode, they were not operating as though they were worried about a Super Idol.
Yeah, and everybody was probably really confused about why Scott was not immediately standing up.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, he's taking this hard. He doesn't know he's supposed to go. Should somebody tell him?
This is awkward.
Let's talk about that move a bit. Let's talk about that move a little bit longer, just because, we brushed on it a bit, but, that was a hella awkward moment, huh?
Oh, well, first of all, let's hit on the fact that if Scott hadn't convinced Ty to hold on to his idol last night, Scott probably would have been safe. Because once Ty goes to play his own idol, Scott would have been like, oh crap, well, I guess I have to play this one then. And he was essentially, obviously he didn't know it, he was arguing to get himself voted out at that point.
Yeah, when he was telling him not to play his idol.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I have to say, obviously Ty wasn't going to give Scott his idol, because if that was what he wanted to happen, he wouldn't have voted for Scott. Yeah, obviously it was part of the fun of seeing somebody fail like that, somebody that I think, most people wanted to see fail. And, I'm one of them to a degree, not anywhere to those degrees. Frankly, I talked a lot this week about a doomsday scenario. I'll just say it right now, it wasn't about Jason and Scott winning.
Yeah, we know.
No, I don't think anybody does. They were thinking about their own. And obviously, Jason or Scott winning would also have really sucked. And I will say right now, I think that's off the table. But yeah, it was like just to be there. Usually when you vote somebody out, they're gone. They're not just kind of like staring at you like, hey, what are we going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
And like, Ty had to just kind of like stare forward, like new phone, who dis, So yeah, it was great television.
Well, the other thing is they got greedy with the 2 idols thing and the super idol. I get that they were trying to hold on to the idols longer, but really if you just resign yourselves to having to play them to stay in the game, you could have just played them as separate idols at this point, which is something that we discussed when we were breaking down the possible use of a super idol.
Yeah, I think what happened there is actually, this is kind of a luck, is because, I don't want anybody to misattribute this to, a plan by, the masterminds last week. Because last week they didn't target, Jason, Scott, or Ty. They just cannibalized one of their own. I think that convinced them this week. It's like, hey, that worked. Let's do it again. And frankly, like, why wouldn't you? Well, you just saw them vote out Debbie instead of attacking any of you. You might as well see if they'll do it again. Cause, if you truly trust each other, then there was no reason why they shouldn't have trusted Ty. Obviously, other than they were wrong. But yeah, I would say, hey, let's keep riding this out. If we're forced to play the idols, we're forced to play the idols. But I wouldn't have played it until I was forced to, based on the information that I had just 3 days previous, that these are people that are willing to vote each other out rather than go up against the idol. Because they shouldn't have done it 3 days ago, right?
Right.
So it's like, well, I guess that was simple. That was a freebie. So why not just find out if you have a freebie? Because if the end of the tribal, you're going to be out 2 idols anyway, find out if you need to play them. Obviously, the backfire is that it didn't work. Ty didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't think any reason why he shouldn't have. And I'm not going to put it on them. They shouldn't have suspected that Ty wasn't going to do it.
Right. He seems like the most trustworthy person that you could possibly have on your side.
And also, as I've already discussed, he shouldn't have done it. Like, just from like a gameplay, like what's in Ty's best interest? Ty's best interest is to not do it.
It's the problem with trying to bank on rational behavior. It doesn't always happen.
No, and that's why Survivor's exciting. Because at the end, it's better that Ty didn't do it. I think the season's going to be better for it.
Absolutely.
There are still a couple things that could ruin that, and we'll get into one of them. But I'm very positive about a potential outlook for this season. And most of it's because of what happened this week. In fact, more than last week, where I was, if I was negative, it's because I was worried that the bad things were going to happen. I wanted Aubrey to succeed, folks. And she did.
Look at you jumping back onto the Aubrey bandwagon right after, pulling the wheels out from under it last week.
I call them like I see them. I don't root for people unless they deserve it. I don't be like, hey, she was so quirky and fun in her in her intros. P.S. Has she been at all quirky and fun this season?
No, it's been so disappointing.
Which it hasn't, because she's been great. But that's weird, because I think that's when people fall in love with her. And I guess, if you follow her on Twitter still, you're still getting that. You're not getting it on the show. You're getting somebody who's been kind of angry the whole time. And I'm not going to say, hey, smile, girl, you'll feel better. For me, hey, great, be a game player. I like that. But, people who are like, I love Aubrey so much because she's cute. She's like, that hasn't actually happened at all this season. Instead, she's been like a challenge beast and a cutthroat player.
Yeah, essentially the season 2 Colby.
If I had a dime for every time somebody on the internet compared Aubrey and Colby.
Oh my God. I would have wanted to get in on the ground floor of that.
I think you actually are.
Yeah.
So the other thing with Ty is, he got the advantage. Do we think this is a good thing for him, or is it a sign of his imminent doom?
I mean, at a certain point, it puts a target on you. Not only that, but combined with the fact that they know you have an idol and yours is, as far as they know, the only one in the game. Yeah, probably a pretty big target on him now.
Yeah, now the good news for him is nobody knows what the advantage is. They did not see the season that has not yet been filmed, nor did they see Worlds Apart because that was filming while they were out there. So at least nobody knows, it's an extra vote, let's target him. So he could be protected by the uncertainty of the advantage. Maybe they think, like Tony would be protected by the uncertainty, right?
Yes.
He'd be out there saying, I could play my auto after the votes are cast. It's a little ironic, right?
Yeah, he would actively use that as an advantage.
I don't have a lot of trust in Ty's ability to tell a convincing lie because I've seen him try. So I think that's another reason why I thought he was going home. When he won the advantage, it's like, oh no, we know how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah. And again, he doesn't know how dangerous this is because he also has not seen it in play.
Right.
But that's another reson why he probably should have just played the advantage last night and got rid of Aubrey and moved it forward. Because now that target is going to be pretty big. But what should he do with it now that he has it?
I mean, it's all going to depend on what his actual alliance is. I mean, is it that group of 4 people that voted together last night? Does he have Aubrey, Sydney, and Joe? Is that what his alliance is?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. Everything's context dependent on how he feels and the reads that he makes during the game. But just like in a vacuum, he has 3 tribals left to play an idol and an advantage. And I kind of think that if he needs the advantage, it might be, like, I don't know if he can wait until he needs it. Either he's on the side of the people he voted with next week, or, like, one more vote isn't really going to help him.
Yep.
And I'm not sure there is a tribal council between now and the final 5 where it would. Because I think when the time comes to vote Ty out, I kind of feel like everybody's going to be voting Ty out.
Well, the only way that it could really come into play, and this was one of the things that I'd argued when I think they first introduced it in Worlds Apart, it's really to make the votes at 8 and 6 more interesting, because you could theoretically split the votes entirely. So it would be 4 on a side or 3 on a side. And then you could use the double vote to push your side into the majority. I just don't know that I see too many possible scenarios where that happens, because final 6 is the only time that can happen now, considering the number of players left. I just don't think it happens.
Yeah, no, like, for him especially, I just, like, there's not going to be a time, I think, when he needs, like, 1 extra vote's going to save him. Either he's in a tribe, in an alliance of 4 people versus 3, which case you don't need an extra vote at all, or he's not, and I don't think he'd be in a minority alliance where 1 vote would go. Like, I don't see, unless, like, the things shift around and Sydney flips away from Aubrey and Joe or something. Like, either he's with those 3 and he doesn't need it at all, or it's not going to matter. And I kind of feel like that's what's going to happen with this thing. It's not going to matter, which is why they changed it in the next season. Because it's kind of weird that this one is less powerful than the last one we just saw.
Yeah, well, we obviously know the reason why. It's because they're filmed out of order, or being shown out of order.
Right, but they knew that. They knew that the next season would be shown before this one, and I believe they made, conscious efforts to not do something like that with other things. Like, we didn't see the Super Idol in Cambodia, right? Because they wanted to introduce it here, even though, it was here and then didn't come into play then. So they knew that it would be weird, that it went back and, it devolved, for us as viewers. And again, they also know that not everybody follows their production schedule or anything like that.
Right.
So for them to be willing to make it, like, make that weird thing where it was like this, and then it became more powerful, and then became back the way it was, I kind of feel like it's because the first 2 times they tried it, it just wasn't doing anything. So like, well, if we're going to do it, let's make it more.
Well, it's also possible, because they've done this with immunity idols too. Remember, the very first immunity idol was pretty worthless. It's essentially putting another immunity necklace on you.
Right, but this would be like, the comparison would be like the 3rd time they did the immunity necklace, they went back to the Gary Hall book.
Well, so what they kind of did was they went from, the far too underpowered first ever immunity idol to the overpowered Yule and Terry immunity idol, and then found the nice middle ground. Although here they're, like you said, going much more back to their roots.
Yeah, and obviously, it's because when they did this one, they didn't know it wasn't going to work, right? Like, Dan Foley screwed it up. Well, he's Dan Foley, right?
Yep.
And, they probably made for a good thing. Like, they build these in not to be unbeatable, right? So it being screwed up is cool. But then when what I'm suspecting might happen is nothing really happens with this one. So they're like, okay, we got to step it up, even though it's going to play weird at home. Because I don't think it would have been part of the plan to just go, where it is now, a little bit stronger, back to where it was, except that maybe what happens with Ty necessitates it. And I kind of think what happens with Ty is that nothing happens. Either he plays it and didn't need to at all, or he doesn't even bother playing it. So for me, what I do, just play it the next vote. I don't think it'll help, but just get rid of it.
Yeah, and especially because you're not likely to run into a scenario where you need to split votes. and then the extra vote would help you because you know where the immunity idol is. I mean, theoretically, there could be still one more that someone else finds, but you have the immunity idol, so splitting votes is not going to likely come up.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing he could do was just let the 3 people in his alliance know exactly what it is. So this is something we're going to do together. Then maybe, and then it becomes a tool and maybe a team building thing. That could work. But what he really needs to do is take the heat off of himself. Unless, again, people are starting to worry like, oh, his idol just got more powerful, or he got a clue to another idol or something like that. Then maybe the mystery will help you, but I also think it comes with risk. So I say get rid of it this time. Then I think at final 6, I don't know if anybody's going to have the balls to go against him. 'Cause it's like, he's got an idol. Let's just take out somebody else, and then he can play his idol at final 5. And that's when it would have mattered. Now I don't think it's going to matter. Tonight he was in a minority alliance where 1 vote would have helped. So moving on, did Jason and Scott screw this up?
Oh, I already kind of covered how Scott at least sort of screwed this up. There was a scenario where he could have saved himself. I get why he didn't.
Yeah.
That you already laid out the case for why he didn't. Jason, I think, screwed it up by handing it to Ty at all, or to Scott at all. You didn't need to do that necessarily. But again, they had clearly established the trust last week. They had no reason not to think that Ty would help them.
Yeah, I know, like everybody's like, you're so stupid. Why'd you do it? It's like, well, it's really a small thing, people. It's only stupid because it didn't work. But like, I feel like handing the idol to Ty last week, should have been a good move. Should have shown, see, you're with us. And more important from Jason's side, Ty, you're with me. Because Ty's connection was more with Scott, right?
Right.
But we fully trust you. You're, full member of this. And Ty gave it right back. So in that moment, it worked. Obviously, 3 days, a lot happens. And I think that's kind of just like what it was. It's just kind of demonstration. We're 3 equals here. We all have idols. Yeah, obviously, retrospect, yeah. You could have just held on to the idol. From what we know. We don't know for sure if there was any mechanics where, like, one of the persons using it needed to be holding the idol, but I kind of doubt it.
I think we did find out for sure that that's not the case.
Where?
I think it was in the note for the idol. Someone went back and read the text that it was, I think it made it pretty clear that you could just pass it. The only scenario that came up, because this came up in Josh Wigler's exit interview with Scott, Scott made it sound like you had to be in possession of one of the idols to save yourself with the super idol.
I didn't get that from his interview at all.
Oh, well, the actual answer is that if you're voted out and you have an idol in your hand, that idol is leaving with you unless someone turns it into a super idol.
Right, yeah. So that I've heard in interviews, yeah, you cannot gift your idol upon being voted out, which, duh.
Right,
that
exactly.
Would be terrible if you could. But yeah, I haven't heard one way or another. I haven't seen it because I've been looking for it, that you needed to hold it in order for it to, you had to hold half of it to activate. But my personal thinking is no, like they created this, they want it played. Mm-hmm. They don't want to put too many obstacles in the way of the super idol being played.
Right.
So let's talk about the super idol. Well, first off with Jason Scott, what they screwed up is just, they obviously didn't make Ty feel good enough about being in their alliance, and, that being that in their alliance was the best move for him.
Well, I think, and part of that is just what we saw at the very start of the episode. Like, he wasn't really comfortable with the stuff they had done with the sabotage thing.
Yeah.
He started the episode saying like, all right, can we end this? This is not cool. We've made our point. Let's, maybe patch things up because I don't like the way we're living right now.
Yeah, and Scott, extends the amazing olive branch by, look, if you guys do what we want you to do, we'll stop being jerks about this. We don't want to do this.
We're being the bigger people here. We're agreeing to stop being jerks as long as you do everything we want.
Well, in Scott's defense, he's almost always the bigger person. But in general, I kind of think like Scott was fine at strategy. I think Jason might have also been fine at strategy. Here's the thing. Most people are fine at strategy at this point. Obviously there's a few idiots every season. Either just don't get it, don't really know it, or don't care. But for the most part, like, strategy often isn't that complicated. Really good players can add wrinkles and complications. I think it's just that we overrate strategy, because I think a lot of the things they did was right. They just turned people off by being themselves. And that's kind of important. And it's also the thing that's hardest to fake. And that was basically it. I think Sydney jumped because she didn't like playing with them. Ty jumped because he wanted to play with people he liked more than them. So I don't know if it was a strategy move. It's just, it's not that your game sucks, it's that you do. So I think that's kind of where they screwed up. But, the other stuff is just whatever. They trusted Ty, and they should have. And Aubrey outplayed them because she's better at this than they are.
So let's talk Super Idol then.
Yeah, we talked a bit in the preseason how, calm down, folks. This is not a big deal. What are the odds that two people would even be in an alliance together and then be willing to do it?
Nearly zero, Andy. Nearly zero.
The factor that we didn't talk about is, the existence of the Super Idol might form those alliances that would otherwise be unlikely. And that's kind of what happened. Scott, upon learning of the different idols, put them all together. But what didn't get put together is the idol. The idol wasn't put together and played. We were totally right.
Yeah, we nailed it, as we do with all of our predictions.
Ignore the fact that just 1 week prior it was put together and would have been played if somebody would have voted against them. It never happened. It will never happen. So don't worry about it. But people still are like, see, I'm so glad the Super Idol's gone because it's super powerful. Weren't these the two best episodes of the season?
Yeah, I would say so.
And isn't that because the Super Idol existed? Otherwise wouldn't it have just been a boring pagonging?
Probably. The one thing, I just wish the Super Idol had a better name. Cause it feels like a Mario Brothers power-up or something right now.
Well, what's wrong with Mario Brothers?
It's true. I agree. I'm a fan, but I don't feel like Super Idol fits. I don't even know that I like it as a concept, but like you said, for this specific season, it certainly added a much more fascinating narrative and an interesting dynamic.
And I should correct it. Obviously, just regular idols probably would have accomplished what happened last week if we accept that nobody actually knew that the Super Idol was there, so they weren't playing off it. But it added it for us.
Well, it probably, they would have had to play them last week, though. I mean, you couldn't have just shown them and held them knowing that you'd be safe.
Right, exactly. Yes, that is true. If they were just regular idols, they would have played them. You're a smart man, John.
Thanks.
Nothing compares to you. But, I am not one of those people. I think it was good. And here's the thing, maybe it's too powerful. Clearly, it's not.
Yeah, we've had, this is now the fourth iteration of this. Never once has it actually been used.
Yeah, and obviously the argument against that is, that Yule and, Tony didn't have to play it because the existence of it scared people. And, there's something to that.
Yep.
However, Scott's gone, and the Super Idol has gone with him. This iteration of, making an idol that's, has that extra power is clearly not too powerful. We just saw it got beat. It could have gotten beaten last week, which I was, hammering on people about. There are ways to beat it. It is
Phrasing.
Powerful. It's not too powerful. The advantages people give in the game have to actually have some power, or we should not have advantages.
Yeah, and plus, we bang on this drum all the time. It's fun when Survivor adds new wrinkles. And usually, if they don't work, they get rid of them.
Yeah, it didn't help Terry Dietz win. You can lose with this power. It just turns out, two people that had it were also really good at Survivor. This time, nothing happened. And I think, splitting it up amongst two people was a good depowering of it. So it's more powerful than a regular idol, potentially. Which is good, because we have a lot of playbooks about what to do about a regular idol. And, of course, the other thing is a lot of people go home with idols in their pockets. Because, it's tough to predict when it happens. And also things scratch you. But yeah, so the extra twist of what two people need to pull the trigger on it made it so that it didn't happen. So it was exciting. If it had been played, that also would have been exciting.
Yeah.
Even though people wouldn't have liked it because the people they didn't like had the idol.
Right, and it had a nice, fun, Fiji vibe there where you're waiting to see if Dreams is going to hand over the necklace to Yao-Man.
We are part of a very small percentage of people that would ever say the phrase, a fun Fiji vibe.
Fun Fiji vibe.
Maybe next season. But yeah, it's quite blinding. These episodes were great, and one of the reasons why they were great is because the Super Idol was there. The strategies that formed around it, the strategies we formed around it to beat it. This is exciting. This is good. Innovation's great, people.
This has been this week's episode of Andy angrily shakes his fist at a cloud.
Yeah, I think I'm done. So the other person that had a bit of a plan was Julia, and that didn't go very well.
To her credit, though, Julia has far exceeded any expectations I had for her. She's at least got a plan. I mean, it's not always the best plan. Even in this instance, I don't know that it's a terrible plan. She wanted to flush Ty's idol, and then she was going to have Sydney taken out in the process, so she's essentially killing two birds with one stone. And I think that worked with the idea of her taking Ty's place in that alliance, is if she can get rid of his idol, it's much easier to slide herself into that position. Unfortunately, that group of three guys is going to know that you voted with the other side at Tribal Council, and I have a feeling she couldn't just go right back to them right after that vote and act like she'd remained loyal and she was part of their plan the whole time.
Yeah, unless she had prior clearance with the guys, but with Scott and Jason. But why would you give that? Their goal is to not play the idol. Yeah, no, I think there was. I agree with you. I think she's got some plans and there's some logic to it. I think her flaw is just she's wasn't able to hide her intentions. People read her pretty easily in what she was trying to do, even though she hasn't really exacted the move against them just yet. They're onto her. I think in this instance, there was just too many moving parts. It would have just been more simple to actually just flip to the guys. Worry about the idol later. It can't be it can only be played at Final 5. Do you think they're voting you out before Final 5? Because if you do, then you don't flip to them at all.
She wanted too much in that arrangement. She wanted to flush Ty's idol, eventually be able to take his spot, and have Sydney taken out. There's just
vote Sydney out.
Yeah.
Or vote Aubrey out. That's all you had to do.
Go one goal at a time.
Yeah, and no, obviously, I guess the possible handicap to that is she could, only guarantee 4 votes, I suppose. The 3 guys and hers against a potential 4, but I kind of feel like she could have gotten Michelle on board. Maybe, there's some indication that maybe Michelle is not interested in voting against the Women's Alliance. Obviously they don't share that, same feeling. And she obviously had no problem with it when Debbie was part of it. But yeah, if you're going to go to that side, the idols aren't dangerous to you.
Yeah, but she clearly was not going to that side.
Yeah. If that was her real strategy, to go to the end of the guys, then just do it. If it's not, then I'm not sure what her strategy is, because it clearly isn't endearing herself to the other side, the rest of the people there. So I respect her for trying some things, which is more than we can say about other people on the season.
Well, speaking of picking a strategy, I loved the wrinkle this week with the reward challenge and getting to choose what you were playing for. Probst says that this is his tweak to avoid the auction thing where everybody just holds money for the advantage. I kind of like that. I mean, yep. I feel like they could have saved the auction very easily anyway, but I'm fine with this though too. I like that this adds a nice fun wrinkle to the reward challenges.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought of that at all. If this is a way to try and fix the auction, that's brilliant. Because they could do an auction now. And people shouldn't be holding out for an advantage, for sure. You shouldn't assume that there's more than one.
Right.
Especially this late into the end game. And, the other thing people often hold out is for loved ones' letters. Now, obviously now they still will, other than Julia. They previewed this before the episode started. They throw it on, CBS.com or whatever. And we were really excited about it. I do think it's a fun little wrinkle because I think any time they give survivors choices, that makes for better television.
Yeah, especially very public choices.
Yes. However, in practice, when Jeff Pittman of True Dork Times pointed this out, probably too many choices. Because in practice, what ended up happening was we saw a matchup of 2 people that lasted 5 minutes. We saw another one of 3 people that didn't last much longer, and then the one that mattered. And it's kind of fun how it all kind of went that way. Nobody dropped out of the 3 for the advantage until everybody else is off the game board.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess all of the excitement and intrigue of that was kind of prior to the challenge actually starting. So maybe if you do that in the future, binary.
Yeah, that's fine.
The battle between Joe and Julia. It seemed like even Julia was upset, oh, that's it. I mean, it is interesting to see, what people, how they gamed it. And I got to watch it hidden, or the bonus scenes. I didn't get to see it. I wonder if anybody kind of talked about their strategy, because the strategy is interesting because it might not just be about what do you want more. It could also be well, what can I win? Or, I don't want to be seen going for this, so right. This is an acceptable loss. Yeah, and those are all interesting things, but obviously we didn't get really into people's heads on that. So I think it's a nice little idea that they should develop further. It wasn't a home run completely.
But I like that it just, what to choose depends almost entirely on your position in the game and how you play the game too. Because if you are trying to go under the radar, the advantage is not a good idea for you. For almost anybody else, it's a very appealing thing to go for the advantage, but it's going to draw a target on you once you get it.
Mm-hmm. And then that's the flip side of the advantage is like, yeah, it's dangerous for you, but of course you don't want the other people to have it either.
Yes.
You know? Especially in a scenario where it's kind of one side versus another. You know, maybe in a Cambodia type thing where it's a bunch of different sides and maybe there's only negatives. It's like, hey, I'll let somebody else have that advantage because then I'll just throw the target onto them. But in this case, yeah, it's like Aubrey and Sydney needed the guys not to have it, and Ty kind of similar at that exact moment anyway. Didn't want them to have it. So it was that was exciting. But yeah, and then you look at like, you know, Scott and Jason, it's like, oh, look at them just going for food. It was like, no, they couldn't have competed with those three. Clearly, obviously.
Right.
They couldn't even compete with Michelle.
Speaking of not being able to compete, I actually lost the season-long medevac game to you.
It was a closer battle than, say, Joe versus Julia.
Yeah, unfortunately, you won 4-3. You got last week's. That is the end of our medevac game. Instead, let's replace it this week by doing an actual medevac prediction, because supposedly there is one more to come. Let's give a top 3. Which 3 medevacs would be the most disruptive to the game right now?
All right, so I think number 1, I'm pretty confident you'd agree with me, is like Aubrey getting medevac would probably ruin this season, right?
Agreed. Yes.
All right, so then from here there might be some variance. I think number 2 would be Ty. And not just because, you know, I love Ty, but because he has 2 interesting game elements in his pocket that would just walk out the door with him and be like, oh, that didn't mean anything. So I think just for like game mechanics and possible ins and outs, losing Ty, and especially like also we kind of need to see how his decision plays out. So that would be, that would deflate the balloon quite a bit. What do you think?
Absolutely. I have number 2 as well. Let's see if we got 3 for 3.
I'll let you go with 3.
Okay, so third is Sydney.
I have Jason, so.
Okay. I feel like Jason is basically bound to be voted out anyway.
The reason why I have Jason is because I want to see him get voted out. Him getting kind of the semi-heroic, oh, shucks, you gave it all you got, but what can you do, you know? That would be a little more disappointing. Like, Sydney's close, right? And I think even when I was first thinking it, because, like, those are the top 3 players I like the most, right? But I think just from a story perspective, it would be much less satisfying to see Jason just kind of get, you know, an unfortunate exit, just like was when Colton did, right?
Right.
We never saw him pay for his crimes. Ever. The closest we got was like Jeff Probst haranguing him, before he tossed a buff into a fire, right? So that's why I had Jason, because I kind of feel like Sydney is just a tier below, them. And that could just be because she didn't do a lot this episode.
That's fine.
Well, you had Sydney mostly, why?
Just because I feel like if Aubrey's gone, Sydney is the de facto leader of that alliance. Yeah,
and I think like she's also, you know, would be exciting to win. Like I absolutely don't want it to happen. And then like we're not quickly, but you know, to round it out, it's like, you know, like so I had Sydney there. Julia would be the only other person. Like what we're basically hoping for is it's either Joe or Michelle.
Yeah, I was actually going to say, can I pick jurors?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that would be devastating.
It would.
It's like, how do we do this? We don't have enough votes.
Right.
But just for Julia, I do want to kind of see what happens with the plans she's been enacting. It almost would feel like a waste of time that, you know, she had all of this and then just got taken out. Ultimately, though, I don't think she's getting medevac because that'll lead into the prediction for next week.
All right. And who do you have getting voted out next week then?
Julia. So I do think there's a great potential and fear in my part that it could be Ty, right? Like he did his job, now you don't need him, and he's dangerous, but I kind of feel like they still need him. Because if Sydney, Joe, Aubrey were to vote him out, because, you know, he's a threat, both in challenges, jury, and he's got, you know, both the idol and the advantage. Now you're handing the power back to Julia, right? Now it's 3-3, and you need something to happen. Potentially. Obviously, you know, there's the person that they never actually are shown talking to or giving strategy, but yeah, from the previews, it seems like she's sitting with Julia and, Jason, for whatever that's worth. And, I mean, you left her out of this vote. So clearly you don't think she's an essential part of your plan. So I think they need Ty for one more vote to ensure that numbers are on their side. So I think then you take out Julia.
We're going to agree on this one again, too, because I had Julia as well. And I want this to be the one prediction that I get right for this season. Again, bravo to her for exceeding expectations that I had for her. But for nothing else other than fantasy scoring purposes, I need her to lose next week.
Well, I mean, this would be the respect vote, right? Like,
yep.
You're taking her out because she's the most dangerous person that's not currently with you. And I think that's absolutely true. I don't see why there'd be any motivation to take Jason out. Joe and Jason are the biggest goats, depending on how it is. Before, he was a little too dangerous to be considered a goat if you were on, like, the side of Aubrey and Sydney. Mm-hmm. But he's not dangerous anymore. No idol, no partner. So now, he can stay. It's not a big deal. His danger is winning the wrong immunity at this point. But
right.
I think Julia is dangerous and Michelle is whatever. So that's why I think Julia.
Michelle is whatever. It's like the tagline of the season.
Yeah, all right. So I think that's good breakdown of a really good episode, wouldn't you think?
Sure. Let's talk about where they can find us.
All right. You can visit our website where you can comment with awesome people and me at www.purplerockpodcast.com.
You can also find us on Twitter. The show is at Purple Rock Pod. Andy is at Purple Rock Andy, and I am at Purple Rock John.
If you listen to the podcast, you've probably been either visiting us on our site, maybe subscribing on iTunes, maybe subscribing on Stitcher. There is now a new option for where you can get the podcast.
Where?
Google Play introduced this week podcasts, and we were on it, as John alluded to in our intro. We are one of, last time we checked, 4 Survivor podcasts on Google Play, so if you got one of them Google devices, or you just really like their, multicolored icon, I don't know. I don't know why Google Play would be any better than things, but options are good. And that is a place where you can subscribe to our podcast.
Yeah. By now, there's probably like 20 more Survivor podcasts on there.
Possibly. I bet they're selective. I feel honored that they chose to debut their podcasting feature with us.
That's true. They probably sought out the best of the best, and obviously they approached us.
And that other one that I've never heard of. And mostly it's because, congratulations to you, John. You were on the spot applying so that we were ready for the debut of Google Play.
It's one of the rare things I actually get motivated to apply for. Unlike the show Survivor.
That's right. That one you're always like, if only it was as easy as applying to be on Google Play.
Exactly.
You can email the show, purplerockpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Tumblr if that's the sort of thing you do, purplerockpodcast.tumblr.com.
And that's all for this week. Let's hit the theme music.